what is spirituality? What are we trying to do here? It's one of those very vague terms that is used quite a lot, but sometimes it's very difficult to try and pinpoint what it is that it means and what's it trying to do. And I suppose it means different things for different people. But ultimately, the way I like to think about spirituality is that it is us connecting with our spirit. We recognize that we are not just a body. We recognize that we're not just a mind, but we're aware that there is a part of us that is spirit-based. There is a part of us that has a intangible side to us. And that spirit is something that we want to understand more. We want to connect with. We feel that there are some benefits to understanding and connecting with our spirit, not only in our day-to-day life, but also throughout how we interact with ourselves, how we understand ourselves, and how we deal with all the circumstances that we come across in our lives. And almost all spiritual traditions are trying to address one specific problem. Almost all spiritual traditions are based around the fact that human beings, we don't understand what we really are. Most human beings don't really have a full appreciation for who they are. And when we say this, I think a lot of people will naturally become defensive and they will say, well, of course we know who we are. I know my history. I know who I am. I know all the things that I've done in my life. I know my likes and my dislikes. And what we do with that is we create an identity that we are this body and we are this thoughts. All the thoughts that are in our head, all our memories and all our likes and our dislikes, all the decisions that we make. And when the spiritual traditions have said, you don't know who you are, it is precisely that which they are addressing, that you believe you are this body, you believe you are the thoughts in your head. And we don't necessarily understand that there is more to us. And even for those who go on a spiritual journey and try to become more spiritual, try to find a practice that gives them peace, that gives them bliss, very often people, even in their spiritual path, don't address the root cause of their problems, don't address the root of who they are. So trying to understand the root of who you are is the most important thing in any spiritual tradition. And almost all spiritual traditions should lead you to ask one fundamental question, and that is, who am I? What is this? What is this body? Where do I come from? Where am I going? Where is my life heading? So these are some very important questions. Now, the reason we need to ask this question of who are you and why are you not sure about who you are is because every human being is born with an idea that there is something more to life. Even from a young childhood, going all the way to adulthood, we see that most human beings walk around with life knowing deep within themselves that something is missing. Something is not quite right in my life. And the way that we deal with that feeling of discomfort within us and that feeling that something is missing in our lives is that we try and then go out into the world to try and find something that will get rid of that feeling of unease, that feeling of being empty, like there's a void and emptiness inside of us. So how do we do it? Most people spend their lives pursuing a happiness by trying to find that happiness from the outside. And that could be through fulfilling our hobbies, that could be through materialism, buying lots of different things, that could be through going through many different relationships. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to find something that will fill this empty hole that we don't quite understand, we never quite study, we never look at it, but we know that there's something uncomfortable inside of us. This is the reason why most people can't sit with themselves. Most people are uncomfortable just sitting and just being with themselves, because there's something so empty inside that it feels like, I must fill that, I have to do something with that. And we always use our senses, our eyes, our ears to listen to sounds, to view something interesting, our taste, our sense of touch. We're always using our senses to gratify us, to give us some feeling that we need to fill an emptiness inside of us. Now, the spiritual traditions have told us that empty feeling inside you isn't actually empty. There's something there. And rather than running away from it, and rather than going out to the outside world, going within ourselves and actually finding what is this emptiness, exploring that discomfort inside of us, that's actually the most valuable thing you can do. And that is where you start to question yourself and say, what is this? What's really going on inside me? Why am I uncomfortable? And so we need to now understand, what do we do when we try and go within ourselves? And this is where spiritual practice must always be complemented with spiritual wisdom. It's very interesting that we see now in the world that there are so many people who are attracted to yoga, to mindfulness, to spiritual retreats, to meditation apps. And what we're doing is we're using a lot of spiritual practices, again, as an external thing to try and fill a discomfort inside of us. And while it's great to use all those spiritual practices, those practices, when they're done without the right guidance, without the right spiritual wisdom, the wisdom that says, what are we trying to do with ourselves? What are we really? Who are we? What are we made of? When we don't have that wisdom, what we do is we use meditation, mindfulness, Zen, yoga, all of these things as just another way to pacify our minds, to try and soothe the discomfort that we feel within our minds. And it's great for doing that, but it's so much more than that. You're really only getting, I wouldn't even say half the benefit if you don't have the spiritual wisdom. So what is the spiritual wisdom? The spiritual wisdom makes us look at two very important factors. One is our worldview. What is the way in which we understand the universe? The second is our self-view. What is the way that we understand ourselves? And they're not actually two different things, but as we explore, we'll find that they're actually part of the exact same thing. They're two sides of the same coin. What is our worldview and what is our self-view? And almost all spiritual traditions have come from this idea that behind all the things that we understand about ourselves, there is a unity. There is something that binds all of life together, all people together, all of creation together. Everything that is there that we can see with our eyes has all come from one source, one creative power. And when we understand this creative power, when we understand this thing that unites us all, that's where we really start heading into the wisdom. We start deep diving into the wisdom, not from an intellectual perspective, but from a self perspective, from trying to understand who we really are. So I want to go a little bit into this idea of oneness. What is oneness? What does that mean? You may have heard these terms like oneness. You've possibly heard the ideas of non-duality. So what do some of these ideas mean? The very basic principle of oneness is that you are part of something greater. That's the first thing that we need to understand. You are connected to something greater than your body. You are connected in a way that you haven't fully appreciated when all you've considered yourself is a person who was born on a particular day, lives a certain number of years and dies. When you just see yourself within that limited window, then you don't understand, well, what was I before this and where will I be after I die? When you understand that, you will start to connect the whole thing together. So the idea of oneness is something that really needs to be understood. And what it really means is that you have been created by something. And as soon as we say this, people start becoming uncomfortable because they assume that we're automatically talking about some God, some creator figure in the sky. But I like to think about it in a little bit more of an easier way to understand, rather than thinking about this God character. And the word God has a lot of problems in itself. Because when we talk about God, we almost automatically think about some human-like character. I call it Mr. God, like this old man with a white beard sitting in the clouds. And really, that's not what we're talking about. But if we think about it, your body, where does it come from? Now, we all know the mechanics of where babies come from. But the very physical elements of your body, if you look at your hands, if you look at your legs, your arms, your muscles, your bones, what is all this? Where does all of this come from? If I lift anything up and I said, look at this pen, where does this pen come from? Your mind will start to think, okay, well, it's got plastic, it's got rubber, it's got metal, so all of these different elements come from the earth in some way. Now, where does our body come from? Where do all these things come from? And when we start to explore that, we realize that we haven't really understood much about our bodies. One of the examples that I like to think about is if you take a child's toy, let's take a robot, for example, a small child's toy, and you see it switched on and it's got its legs and its arms all moving, then imagine we were that robot. That robot, if we are that robot, that little toy that's moving around, we think that we're moving completely independently on our own. We think we are making ourselves move. But the robot doesn't understand that it cannot move by itself. Somebody has to put the batteries in the robot. When there are batteries in the robot and they're working, then the robot can move. Then the lights switch on and all the sounds come on and all the things can move in that toy. As soon as you take the batteries out, then that toy cannot function. So the toy has no way of working independently on its own. It always needs that energy source. And in the same way, we think that we're moving our bodies and we're completely in control of our bodies. But where does this come from? What is keeping this body alive? Where does the energy come from? If we think about our bodies like that same little robot, what is the energy source that keeps it moving, that keeps it alive for 50, 60, 70, 80 years? What is keeping this going for all this time? And that's when we start to understand that there is something inside of us, and I like to call that aliveness. There's something in you that is alive. And another way to understand this is if you take a person who is alive, and when that person dies, what has changed? What is it that was in the person who was alive and is not there now in the person when they die? They still have the same heart, they still have the blood in their body, and they have all the organs, and they have the skin and the bones and the muscles, the same head, they have everything. What has changed? There is something in a person who is alive that has now been removed, and that's why a person goes from being alive to not being alive. What is that has been removed? What is the thing that as soon as your body was created was put into you? That's what I am calling aliveness. And it's a way to make it very simple to understand without using any terminology that you might have a barrier towards. And I'm saying that there is a spark inside you. Call it a spirit, call it divine light if you want to use religious terminology, call it a life force. There's something inside all of us. Now that life force that is inside of us is also inside everything else that is born. Anything else that is created, from insects that you might see in your garden, to birds flying above, to animals, to other human beings, to trees and plants. Everything that is alive also has a life force, a life energy that keeps it alive, because anything that has been born can also die. So that means that at one point it has the aliveness, the life force inside of it, and after a while it doesn't have that alive force inside of it. So what is that? What is that thing that is inside all of us? Now, with our minds, we can't necessarily fully calculate or understand or work out what that thing is. But we can appreciate, yes, right now, I am alive. There is a force inside me that is there all the time. Now, this force inside you is what many spiritual traditions have said, that force inside you, whether you believe in a God or anything, is completely irrelevant. That there is an aliveness inside all of us. Every spiritual tradition has said that aliveness that is inside you is worthy of your attention. You need to spend some time and look at it. You need to spend some time and connect with it, because it's there. And it's not always going to be there. It's not always going to be connected with this body. At some point, this body was just a small group of cells, and this aliveness force came into it to make it alive. And at some point, this aliveness is going to leave. And so the spiritual traditions have said that if there is an aliveness, a force, a spirit that enters your body, stays in your body for a while, and then eventually leaves, then you are really that aliveness. You are not this body, you are the spirit that is inside the body. And so at some point the body is going to go. So why spend all of your time focused on the body? Why spend all of your energy while you are in this physical body? Why spend all of your energy on something that is temporary? This is an opportunity for you to connect with that spirit. This is an opportunity for you to realize that you have this spirit that is older than time itself. That spirit has always been there. That spirit hasn't been created. That spirit has always been there. You just don't know that because you don't remember anything prior to your birth. And so spending this human life completely absorbed in the human body, or completely absorbed with the worldly interactions, all the spiritual masters have said, you know what, you're missing something, you're missing an opportunity to find out more and to connect with it. Because, like we said right towards the beginning, most human beings spend their lives knowing that their life feels a little bit empty. And the reason you feel a little bit empty is because you are this spirit, but you're trying to find happiness elsewhere. You know that there is some happiness in your life that you feel like you deserve, but you look in every other place to try and fill that happiness. And what the spiritual teachings have always said is, no, you need to go within yourself and find that. You need to find that connectedness, that which is a part of the whole universe. When you connect with that spirit, you will realize that you are much more than just this body. The body is here, but the spirit is connected with everything. Your spirit is part of a large network of spirits, and they're all part of this one gigantic being, spirit, universal force. Call it what you want. You see that when we start using language, language is very limited. But all the spiritual traditions are saying, connect with your spirit, because your spirit is far bigger than this body. It's far greater. You are connected to a lot more. And so the spiritual teachings have tried to use examples to help us understand this a little bit more. And the example that I find is the most effective in trying to explain this is the analogy of a wave that doesn't know that it's part of the ocean. Think about when you've been to the beach and you see these large waves. A large wave comes up and it goes back down into the ocean. Well, I like to think about our life almost like that one single wave. There was a point where we didn't exist, and then like the wave, at one point we became alive, we became manifest in this physical form. And we are alive for a very short period, and eventually we go back. Just like the wave that comes up is there for a moment and then goes back into the ocean. For that very split second that the wave is alive is the same that how we need to understand our lifespan. Our lifespan in all time and space is actually a very small fraction. So even though we think that we live for many decades, the reality is, if you look at time, we're alive for a very small fraction of time, just like that wave is there for a very small fraction in the story of the entire ocean. So that wave, when it comes out of the ocean, it thinks that it is a wave. It thinks, I am here and me being here is very important. In the same way, human beings, we arrive into this world and we think us being here is of tremendous importance. And so we spend all of our time only focused on the wave itself. We're focused on this very short period that we are alive in this physical form. And the spiritual teachings have said, don't worry so much about the wave. Remember that the wave is part of the ocean. And just like a wave doesn't understand that it's part of the ocean, we don't understand that we are part of the divine universal force, life force, or spirit. And when we begin to understand that we are part of something greater, we are not just this body, but we are this spirit that is everywhere and connected to everything, that has been called oneness. That has been called non-duality. This idea that we are not a separate being, that this body is separate from every other person or every other thing outside. We are actually a spirit or a life force that is totally connected to everything. When you connect with that life force is fundamentally at peace. That life force inside you does not have a beginning, middle, and end. It is beyond time itself. It's always there. Whether this body is there or not, this life force is always there. So the things that we try and fill our time with, the things that we try to get happiness from, those things are always temporary. And when we connect with temporary things, we only ever experience temporary happiness. So the spiritual wisdom has said, go and find that which is not temporary, but that which is permanent inside each and every one of us. And you can't read books about that. You can't go and find that somewhere outside. There's only one way to find that, and that's to go and experience what you are. Spend time within yourself. And this is where all the various spiritual traditions of meditation and mindfulness and Zen and yoga, all the different spiritual traditions are all trying to point you back to your own being, to that life force within yourself. Now, this is where we have to spend a little bit of time to make sure that we understand it, because for most of us, this is not our experience. We don't experience this life force, this spirit inside of us, so we are unsure that it's actually true. So let's try and unpack it a little bit more to make sure that we understand it. This word God that I mentioned before is a very difficult word to connect with. And most people are now saying that we don't accept this idea that there is a God because it feels too dominating, like some sort of master in the clouds. So when we go on a spiritual journey and saying, I'm trying to connect with God, most of us don't know what we're doing. And this is why most people are getting turned off from traditional religions and they're getting more inspired by spirituality. So if we said that there is God everywhere, or there is God inside you, you might say it, but you might not necessarily know what it means. So I like to replace the word God with another word that helps us to connect with it a little bit easier. If I asked you the question, is life inside you? For most people, whether you call yourself religious or not, whether you're atheist or whether you call yourself spiritual or whatever, you might all come to the same conclusion, and I think we can all agree, is there life inside us? And you'll say, yes, there is life inside us. Are you inside life? Is there life all around you? And we might say, yes, there's life all around us. If there is life inside me, and there is life inside everyone else, and there is life all around us, all of a sudden that becomes a term that becomes a lot easier for us to use to connect with this idea of oneness. You can say the life in me is the same as the life in you. We're all borrowing from this pool of life. Another word that we can use is universe. Are you in the universe? You'll say yes. Is the universe within you? You'll say yes, the universe is in me and I am in the universe. We're all part of the same thing. So if you are in the universe and the universe is inside you, is the universe that's in you the same as the universe that's in everyone else? And you'll say yes, we're all part of this same one universe. That's again another concept of oneness, another way to connect with this idea of oneness. And the more we explore this idea, we might say, okay, I like the sound of this oneness. It makes sense, it sounds nice, but I don't feel this oneness. When am I going to feel this oneness? And when we look at time, we can also apply this idea of oneness to time. When we look right now, how many moments of time are you in? Are you in several moments of time? You might think, well, I'm in one moment of time, and now I'm in another, and now I'm in another. Moments of time keep changing. But that's just something we do with our minds. Let's look at our experience. What does this moment feel like? Does this moment feel like it is changing? Or does this moment feel like it is just the same all the time? Try and just sit within yourself. Experience this moment. You'll notice that the moment doesn't seem to have a start, a beginning, a middle, and then an end. It doesn't seem to do that. It just is. It's just present. So the question, when can I find this oneness? When will I experience this oneness? You can only experience this oneness in this moment of time. Past and future are not actually things that you can experience. You can have a memory of the past, but you can't be in the past. You can have an imagination of the future, but you can't experience the future. The only thing you can experience is this moment now. So there is only oneness when we look at time. Time is only experienced as oneness, as a single permanent moment. Now the things that happen in this moment can change, but the experience of the moment itself is always the same. You are always right here in the now. You cannot be anywhere except here, right here in this moment of now. You cannot be in yesterday You cannot be in tomorrow. You cannot even be in 5 minutes ago or 5 seconds ago. You can't be there. You can remember it with your mind. You can project an idea of it, but you can't be there. You can only be there in this moment. So the oneness is in you right here, right now. And we might say, okay, I'm starting to understand this oneness a little bit more. But if I'm so connected to this oneness, why don't I feel like the oneness? Why don't I feel like I am connected to everything else? Why don't I feel like the life force that's inside me is the same as the life force that's in everyone else? Why don't I feel connected to this? And this is where we need to understand the second most important thing about spiritual wisdom. The first, remember that I said, is our worldview, our understanding of the world itself. The world is not made up of lots of different things. The world is made up of one thing in lots of different forms. There is one universe, there is one life force, life energy that is in everything. But we have not understood that. And because we haven't understood that, what we've done is we've created something that is our individual identity. We've created an individuality. And in individuality, we create a duality. See, the word duality is within individuality. Let me unpack this a little bit more. I am here. That is what we would all say about ourselves. I am here. I am in this body. I am this body. This is who I am. Most human beings, in fact, almost all human beings, spend their whole lives in this identity of themselves. I am this person who is this body. And because we've been trained our whole lives, right from birth, this identity of I am this person, I am these thoughts that are happening in my mind, then that idea gets cemented. That idea just gets locked deeper and deeper and deeper to the point where we are unable to see anything past the I am. I am only this body. I am only this body mind. I am nothing else. I'm not that tree and I'm not that bird over there. I'm certainly not those people over there. I am here. And in our individuality, we divide I am with everything else. We say, I am here. We divide ourselves as being separate. We create a division, a duality. I am here, so I am not over there. And if I'm not over there, everything else is separate from me. Everything else is different from me. I am here. That's my experience, and I don't know anything more. Every spiritual tradition is trying to break that understanding of yourself, that you are just this thing that is in this body right now. You are only here. You're not something else. You're not greater than that. So your spiritual practice is not just to calm your mind. Meditation, yoga, bhakti, jnana, none of these things are just to calm the mind. Calming the mind is the very first superficial layer of your inner journey, going deeper and deeper within yourselves. You need to see that you are actually something greater. But like I broke down the idea of who is this oneness, what is this oneness, we also need to break down this idea of what am I? Because I don't feel like I'm a oneness, I just feel like I'm me. And the best analogy that I've thought of that seems to create an understanding about who we are is what I like to call the bricks analogy. If you think about building a home, what's the most important thing that you need when you start to create any building is you need a strong foundation. And when we build our identity of ourselves, we also start with a foundation. And that foundation is our name. So imagine that who you are is like a wall that's being built. At the very base of that wall, we start to build our bricks about who we are. As soon as a baby is born, the first thing you do is you give it a name. And so the first brick of your identity gets laid. you are this person. This is the name for the rest of your life that you will be known as. So you start to understand, oh, I am this name. Then we look at our bodies. We have a body. We are either male or female. So we create an identity. I am male, I am female. I am this name, I am this body. And so you start to see how your identity is formed. And then the baby, the body, is related to other people. I have a mother, I have a father. I have brothers and sisters. These are my family members. So imagine you're building the wall of who you are. You start with your name, you start with your gender. This is my family, this is who I'm related to. If you're brought up in a particular religion, if your family subscribe to a particular religion, then that becomes part of your identity. People will say, I am a Hindu, I am a Catholic, I am a Jew, I'm a Muslim, I'm a Sikh. I am all these different religions, and I have to pick one of them. So my family's religion is who I am. I am this religion. So now you start layering more and more and more bricks. And as you grow older, you start creating more identities. So I belong to this family, I belong to this country, I belong to this race, this is my nationality, this is my identity, this is my religion. And you start building a wall of identity within your mind. This is how the psyche gets formed. You start creating identities, you start attaching labels to yourself. And over time, as you get older and older and older, you start adding more to them. I am a student. At one point you were a student, you were a child in school, and then you graduated from school, and then you got a job. So you had one of these bricks was I am a student. And then as you graduated, you got rid of that brick and you replaced it with I am now this career. I am a lawyer, I am a doctor, I am a journalist, I am a carpenter. You start building identities based on what you do with your time. I am related to these people. These are my friends. These are the people I like. These are the things I don't like. You start building identities just on your opinions. I like certain things. I don't like certain things. I do this. I don't do this. I am a vegetarian. I am a vegan. I am this. I am that. And so you start building more and more and more identities. And so, of course, when somebody starts talking about you are part of this oneness, you'll say, no, I'm not. I am this person, I'm this body, I'm this family. I am all of these things. I am connected only to these things. I'm nothing related to all of those. The spiritual traditions have said, if you go within yourself, you will realize you are none of these things. If you imagined yourself to be a house made of lots of different bricks, the spiritual master is coming to tell us, you are none of those bricks. You are not your name, you are not your body, you are not your family, you're not your relatives, you're not your likes, your dislikes, your occupation, your opinions, you're none of these things. You are a light inside that house. There is an aliveness inside this body that is not interested in whether the body is male or female, is not interested in whether you're a vegetarian or a vegan, is not interested whether you are black or white. There is a life force inside you that is beyond all of those things. And because we spend very little time connecting with the life force inside of us, we are always agitated because we know that there is something missing in our life. And so what we do is we try to add more bricks to our lives, and we try and become richer, or we get fame, or we want to find peace in some other way. And we're adding more to that brick, that mansion, that house that we've built all around us. And we said, this is who I am. Well, now I don't want to be this, I want to be that. I want to replace these bricks with those bricks. So we want to replace certain parts of our identity, hoping that when we replace certain parts of our identity, that's what's going to fix our feeling of discomfort. We'll say, if only I had a partner in my life, that's when I will feel happy. If only we had children, that's when I'll be happy. If only I had a better job, If only I was more senior in my role, if I had that promotion, if only I had more money, if only I left my job and followed my dreams, if I was more successful. I never wanted to sit in an office, I always wanted to be a musician. So we're always thinking that by changing certain parts of our identity, that is what's going to give us peace. But the spiritual wisdom has always said, none of those things can give you peace, because they're all temporary things and they're all connected with the temporary body. You have to find peace by going much deeper within yourself, finding that you are none of these things. In fact, you are the light inside you. You are the aliveness inside you. So how do we start to build an understanding and a connection with this? The way we do it is you understand that all your spiritual practice is really just trying to bring you connected to this life energy that's inside you. And you start to detach yourself from all the things that you thought you once were. Detachment now becomes one of the most important parts of your spiritual journey. You start to release your attachment to certain things. Now, it's very important that we understand that you're not getting rid of things, because no matter what you get rid of, there are certain things that you can't get rid of. So it's not about moving things out of your life. It's about detaching your identity to those things. So I am a doctor or an engineer, or I work in IT, I work in office, I work as a teacher. I am those things, but I don't need to be attached to them. I need to do those things. That is what this body needs to do. But that is not who I am. I am the life force within all of us. I am the spirit that is inside me and inside you. You start to always identify with yourself as the spirit, not as the body. So you start to detach yourself even from the roles and responsibilities you have, even from the duties that you need to carry out, even from your opinions and the thoughts inside in your head. All the spiritual teachings that try to help you silence your mind is because your mind is constantly reinforcing, I am me, I am this individual. But spirituality is saying that's just a noise in your head. Go deeper and you will see that you are part of something greater. So we detach ourselves even from our families, even from our duties. If you're a parent, if you're looking after small children, you have to do those things, but you're detached from them, because I am not you. I am not bound to you. I'm not always going to be here. This body is not always going to be here. So I have a role, but that's not who I really am. You start to create more and more detachment from these things, even though you carry on doing all those things. And you realize that nothing that I thought was mine, let's go back to that analogy of building our identity of our bricks. We realize none of those things are actually mine. This body isn't yours because you didn't do anything to have it. It was just there. It was just created. Life force was put into this body. You did nothing to earn this body. You did nothing to earn your family. You did nothing to earn the color of your skin. You did nothing to earn the opinions that were put into you as a child. You are this religion, you follow this, you believe this, you practice this. You had nothing to do with that. That was all just given to you. Your body was given to you. When you start realizing that nothing I thought I was is actually of my own doing, then you realize that everything has been given to me. Even breath isn't something that you do. Breathing isn't something that you control. It's just being given to you. Breath is given to you. Life is given to you. The life force inside me is also given to me. I didn't create this life force inside me. I didn't create this body. I didn't create anything. When you start to understand that, you're able to detach yourself more and more. You're able to realize, what am I holding on to? Nothing is mine. This body has been created, it's alive, and then at some point it's going to drop. This body will not be here. Even if I say, I am a soul, we create an identity. We say, I am, this is me, this is mine. And we create an identity that I am the soul. Even that soul isn't yours. Even that soul, that life energy is borrowed, is given, is here, but it's not yours. You are nothing. So this idea that I am something has been called ego, has been given this way of understanding that you have for a very long time carried an identity that you thought, this is who I am. And the spiritual teachings are trying to say to you, you are not this body. You are not your attachments. You are not your family. You are not a parent of these children. Your body is there, their body is there. You are not connected in the way that you think you are connected. You're connected in a very different way. You're not even the spirit inside you. Even that is borrowed. And when you realize that, you start to now change your mindset. We think we are the owners of this body. This is my body. We think we are the owners of our home. This is my home. These are my children. This is my partner, my husband, my wife. This is my job. When you start realizing that actually, no, none of these things are actually mine, you start to realize that everything is not yours to own. In fact, the way to think about life is not the way that we've been doing it all along. You are not the owner of anything. You are renting everything. I'm sure if you've been on holiday and you might have rented a car, you take extra care because you know at the end of your holiday you have to hand that car back and you don't want there to be any scratches or any bumps on the car. In the same way, we need to understand that we are renting this body. This body has been given to us, but it doesn't belong to us. And at some point, we don't know when, this body will be taken away from us. We don't know that we're going to live until 80, 90, 100 years old. We'd like to think we will, but you don't know that. The truth of the matter is breath is being given into this body. You are renting even breath. If you take one breath in and let it out, you don't know that another breath is going to come in. You'd like to hope that it is, but you don't know that your body is always going to function the way it is. So everything is borrowed, nothing is mine. And when you start to use this sort of mentality, if you are constantly in a spiritual practice that is giving you this spiritual wisdom, remember that I said spirituality cannot just be the practices, it must be the wisdom that goes with the practices. If you have a wisdom that's constantly reminding you all the time, this is borrowed, nothing is mine, even the life force inside me is part of something greater. There is a life force in me that is everywhere, and it is borrowed in me, and it is everything and everyone else, but it doesn't belong to me. Then you will realize that everything is rented, nothing is yours to own. And so, when we realize that everything is rented, we own nothing, then we can start to detach ourselves and start to be more and more aware that there is a oneness in the whole of the universe and you are a part of this oneness. At one point, this oneness created a form in the form of this body, and at one point this body is going to disappear and it's going to go back into that oneness. The body is going to disappear back into the earth, and the spirit that's inside this body is always going to just go back into the spirit of the universe. So everything is belonging to the universe. Nothing belongs to me. And if you can have a relationship with the universe where you understand everything is yours, nothing is mine. And the most powerful thing that I found within my own spiritual practice is to use mantra, to use words that remind you, everything is you, nothing is mine. Everything is you. This is you. This body is you. This breath is you. This moment is you. Everything is you, O wonderful universe. O life force that is in me, this is you. This life force is you. This body is yours. You're speaking to the universe, and you're reminding your brain all the time that everything is borrowed. Nothing belongs to what I have been calling me, the ego. Nothing belongs to the ego. The ego doesn't even exist. Nothing is mine to hold on to. Everything is yours. This is one of the most powerful and satisfying and blissful ways to live. And if you can connect whatever your spiritual practice is to the wisdom of spirituality, the wisdom of oneness, the wisdom of non-duality, non-separation. I am not separate from anything. Everything is borrowed from that universal life force. Then you will start to feel the oneness. And you can call this oneness by any name. This oneness has been called God, it's been called divine, it's called Allah, it's called Krishna, it's called Ram, it's called Vaheguru. It's been given so many different names. Param Atma, the Supreme Soul. There is an Atma, a soul, and then it belongs to the Supreme Soul, the Param Atma, the Para Brahma. It is all of these wonderful things. There are so many names, and all we need to do, whatever your spiritual practice is to constantly have a trigger word or a reminder that when you're going about your daily life, as you're meeting other people, as you're going for a walk, as you're looking at nature, as you're traveling to work, as you're looking at people that you like and maybe even people that you don't like, you're always reminding yourself, this is you. This moment is you. This body is you. These eyes are yours. The awareness inside me that is looking is also you, and what it is looking at is also you. So I hope that this has been useful. I hope that you found this as a way to understand oneness, to connect with yourself, and to realize that everything is part of this universal oneness. If you can connect your spiritual practice with this spiritual wisdom, then you will find a lot more peace and a lot more purpose to where your spirituality is trying to go to. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you benefited from that. If you'd like to help us create more spiritual content, then head over to our website, nanaknaam.org/donate, and think about setting up a regular monthly donation. We're a 100% non-profit organization, so all the donations that you give us go directly into the charity and that help us to create and share Gurmat spiritual wisdom.